Over the Hoosiers. We'll talk to a young man who's come back from a rough start to be a good example for all young athletes, and we'll scout the Boilermakers of Purdue. All that and more coming up next. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Michigan Replay. The Wolverines, a homecoming victor over Indiana, 38-10. And do you realize, Coach, in 21 years, you've never lost a homecoming contest?
That's pretty good, except who do we play all the time?
Yeah, well, now let's face it.
That might have more to do with winning than anything else.
But let's face it, Indiana coming into this game was considered to be for real.
They're still a good football team. They have a good offensive scheme. They got a good quarterback. They got a great tailback. The surprising thing about the whole game is that we were able to make the plays against their defense like we did. I thought it would be much stickier than what it was.
But the other surprising thing, too, was the fact that their Heisman hopeful, Anthony Thompson, gained less than 100, and you said all week long, I don't think we can hold that kid under 100.
No, I told our defense that if we could hold him to 4 yards or less per carry, because we didn't know how many times they'd give him the ball, and never give him a run of over 10 yards, we'll win the game.
In the meantime, when you get the ball, your offense goes to work, and you do it on the ground.
Well, I think we're blocking better, and we're a much better team than we have been. This is a little counter play in here. Tony Bowles got hurt, and Alan Jefferson came in and gave us some momentum, ran very hard here on the counter play, and then Mike goes back to pass and hits Chris Callaway over here for a first down.
And this was your third possession. They'd done pretty well, and then you seemed to solve their defensive schemes.
Well, we did a better job because here Jefferson breaks out on a long gainer, shows his speed here. I think he's slowly but surely regaining his speed from that leg injury. But our defense, I think, started to solve his cutbacks, and we didn't overrun plays and did a better job. Here Tony Bowles runs through a tackle at the 3-yard line, goes in to score our first touchdown, and we take a 7-0 lead.
That puts you ahead, and then they come back, and they start to move the ball a little bit through the air.
Yes, they did. They hit the outcut to the field here, close to a first down. I thought, early they did a good job. Now, here we went back, put a little heat on him, and unfortunately, one of our lads was supposed to keep leverage, not let him get outside, but failed to do so, and he gained yardage.
But this is what Anthony Thompson said all day.
Notice the cutbacks, and we started to do a better job of closing those gaps on the backside. And I think that's what did it. Here we get a sack out of Michael Evans, and we did a pretty good job of keeping heat on him. I think we covered the receivers pretty well, and that's the reason we got a couple of those sacks.
Then their kicker, Bunnell, hits one from 55, and it could have been 65.
Whatever. I mean, that ball I thought was going out of the stadium, and they teed it up at midfield.
And then the big play happens.
This is the same counter play that Jefferson ran earlier. Bowles breaks to the outside, and all of a sudden he's in the clear. And I don't think people realize that Tony Bowles probably a 4-3 or at the worst 4-4 in the 40. You're not going to catch him once he gets an opening like that.
Well, the thing I think that was important, too, is that once you got the lead, you took control. You really kind of took Thompson out of the game. And, again, there you are making the big play on him with Bobby Abrams.
Right. Abrams made a nice play there. We did a good job. He ran 30 times for 90 yards. That was enough to get us a victory. Here's a short yardage play, and Michael Taylor runs the option to keep the drive alive. Comes back and throws out to Chris Callaway in the flat. Chris picks up another first down. We tried as much as we could to mix up the run and the pass, and we passed on first down, passed on second down. Here's a great play by Tony coming down the left sideline on the sweep into the sideline to make it 21-3 just before the half.
And you're blocking much better up front, and the defense continues to play strong against Thompson.
Here at ground level, you can see that Anthony Thompson tried to run, and we closed in and stopped him. Here's pressure. Now, that is, in my judgment, a coverage sack because he had enough time to throw that ball, but the receivers were covered, and then we eventually got to it. Here's an interception by John Milligan. Shows his old fullback power there at...
He put some moves on...
When he was playing down at Trenton High School, he used to be a fullback.
He put some moves on Thompson I think Thompson's never seen before, huh?
Mike goes right to work here. throws to McMurtry.
Just before half, too.
Just before half. There's not much time left.
Big field goal in a tight game so far.
It's 21-3, and we kick a field goal here. 11th consecutive field goal for Carlson. And I think it ties a record that Mike Gillette set a couple of years ago.
It does. It ties the record for most consecutive field goals by Michigan, and that's 11 in a row for him. And at the first half, you had to feel pretty confident with the lead you had going in at half, 24-3. Although I know you always say, yeah, you're never out of the woods, especially with a guy like Thompson on that side.
No, you really aren't. But let's face it, Jim, it does make you feel a little bit comfortable when you go in at halftime 21 points ahead.
Back with the second half highlights in a moment, but first, we'll hear from the man who outdueled the Hoosiers' Heisman hopeful right now.
I came in this game today kind of making up my mind that I am in the contention of running the Big Ten championship, running as a running back also. You know, my mind came in today like, you know, I was really upset at everyone giving all the hype to him and all the attention to him. So I wanted to come out today and prove a lot of things to a lot of people. Hey, if you can see the holes that we had today, anybody can run through them on 91 yards.
Out in the first couple games, but I don't know, I feel a lot better now, and I think, you know, the whole line's feeling the same way.
You bet the whole offensive line's got to feel a little bit better with the performance against Indiana on Saturday, and you've got to feel a lot better about the way they performed. Ever since the Michigan State game, that offensive line seems to be coming together.
I think they're getting a little better, and they created some holes in Indiana defense, and we got more yardage in this ball game than we got in any previous two ball games.
It's taken a little while, but that's a little more what you expected.
Well, you know, I didn't expect. I was hoping we'd get 200 yards. You know, once we get 200 yards, we're in pretty good shape because, you know, we're going to pass the ball for 150, 200 yards.
Opening the second half, you couldn't do anything on your first possession, but then the defense gets the ball back for you.
This is an interception by Beta Murray, and Beta's one of these safety men that's usually in the right place at the right time. And so he gives us an opportunity to go here, give the ball to Bernie Leggett. And we've been sweeping him quite a bit in our running, and we wanted to do a little more inside, keep him honest. They came up on Greg McMurtry in real tight coverage, and Michael Taylor went up on top, and we got a touchdown.
And the thing about that touchdown, what it did is it really took the great running back kind of out of their game plan at that point.
Well, when you're down like that, you know, the running backs, you got to start throwing the football, and that's what they did. And they effectively threw it. They moved the ball quite well against us on occasion. But like this pass here, he threw that thing sidearm, and it was a beautiful play.
And the tight end, first time they'd really found him open.
Oh, yeah, and he was open. Now, I don't think he was supposed to be open, but he's open. And we shouldn't have allowed him to run here on this option, but we did. And Indiana's putting together a pretty good drive here. This is Thompson picking up a first down before he got knocked out of bounds. And then finally on third down and goal, he goes over for the touchdown. And the score now is 31-10.
And that tied Thompson for the all-time career touchdown mark.
Well, he's a marvelous, marvelous player, and he's had a great career. And thank heaven we don't have to play against him anymore.
He ties Tony Dorsett and Glenn Davis for that career mark, and will probably
excuse me, Jim, that was Allen Jefferson breaking the play there and comes right back.
Just interrupt me if I get in your way, okay?
Yeah, right. Well, you know, and I thought Allen did a good job. He went in there and got 90-some yards real quick. Mike goes back and hits Derek Alexander, a fine freshman receiver, for a touchdown. They got up real tight on Alexander. Alexander is very, very fast. He's probably as fast as any receiver we got. And I don't think you can play him like that. And he was thrilled to death to see that because he ran right by that guy.
He's a true freshman, so that was a big thrill for him to catch a touchdown pass in a big game like that.
Oh, yeah. That's, I'm sure he feels real good.
And at this point, puts you in the driver's seat for the Big Ten championship. You've still got some games to play that you're not looking past, I know. But this was a big game after two emotional games on the road.
I think there are a couple things that you'll have to keep in mind. Number one is that we have 4 games to play. We have to win all of our games in order to go to the Rose Bowl and be the undisputed champion. We have Purdue this week at home, and then we have to play at Illinois. Illinois, Jim, is a powerful defensive football team. And then we have to go to Minneapolis when anything can happen up there in the barn. and then finally back here against a great Ohio State offense. So we've got a lot of football to play. We are not in any driver's seat. We are in contention.
Well, thank you for the correction. And yet, you have improved week to week, and I think you feel that this team is coming around to reaching its potential, don't you?
I think it's getting better. I think it's getting better, and I think it can smell a championship. and if it continues to work hard and to get better each week, we do have a chance.
Well, you do have a chance, but first let's take a look at the comeback story of Veda Murray. But first, before that, we'll talk to the defensive heroes who held Anthony Thompson in check against Indiana.
Well, coming into this game, our big objective was to stop the A train, Anthony Thompson. And I think we did a pretty good job of that, bottle him up, especially in the first half. And, we really didn't want to give him a touchdown. That's one thing we didn't do. So that was like, the disappointment of the day, him scoring. But I think, as a whole, I think we did a pretty good job on it.
That's the thing, he gets the ball a lot. We can't control the amount of times he gets the ball, but we can control a little bit how many yards he gets per carry. So, we're jacked up about it.
Big adjustment for any 17-year-old. Add football to the equation, and it gets even bigger. And for student athletes who are affected by the NCAA's Proposition 48 rule, the transition is monumental. Michigan's starting safety, Veda Murray, is one of those students, but his story is a success story. He didn't meet the Prop 48 minimum test scores. He was ruled ineligible, and the negative labels immediately followed. Veda Murray struggled against it in his freshman year.
Toughest adjustment was probably learning to get along with the players and stuff, and trying to get those guys to accept you, because they're practicing and you're not, and you're watching, and so you get the impression that they look at you differently, and so you want to try and get their backing and stuff.
Veda had to prove himself in the classroom long before he ever put on a Michigan helmet. It was probably his toughest job under the unfair scrutiny he experienced. But it was a challenge he accepted, and he turned the negative into a positive.
Schoolwork is only budgeting your time and knowing your priorities. And schoolwork is your number one priority in college. And so I knew that I had to hit the books really hard, because the pressure was on me, and people were watching to see how well I did the first year I was here. If you don't take advantage of that situation, you're crazy.
But he did. He now carries a 2.8 grade point average. He's making big plays in the secondary, and he's a leader on this Michigan team. He'd like nothing more than to never hear Proposition 48 mentioned again.
It's in the past. It happened 3 years ago. And I don't like bringing it up, but it still comes up. I just have to learn to live with it, because it's something that happened in part of my life that I have to live with, and I just got to take it, with a grain of salt.
Wish it would go away, though.
Yeah, I wish it would go away. But
outlived the Prop 48 issue. It was no longer a stigma, and we're very happy that he said that he wouldn't mind talking about it, and it's, I think, one of the positive stories about collegiate football and about a young man who's made good.
Well, there were circumstances involved in his life at the time that he was being tested that I think were detrimental to him doing well on those tests. He was nearly a B average student at Moeller High School in Cincinnati, which was a good high school. And Veda Murray had all the qualifications for success in college. And that's going to happen. Proposition 48 is going to catch a few guys that really probably shouldn't be caught. But in the long run, it's in the best interest of all of our high school students who want to go to college and to play athletics, that they do well academically if they want to be considered.
And the interesting thing was that Veda said that if he had to say something to the NCAA, it would be rule all freshmen ineligible, allow them to adjust, then give them 4 years eligibility. And I found that interesting that he would say that.
Well, I think the NCAA is going to take Veda Murray's advice. I would suspect that they will pass that rule sometime in January.
Well, it's a great rule, and it's a great story that Veda Murray has made the comeback, and we're delighted we could share it with you. Don't go away, though. The Boilermakers are next on the Wolverine schedule. We'll be back with a scouting report when Michigan Replay continues. to win by 6 touchdowns, and they may play you a little tougher. Those guys don't know they're supposed to be 6 touchdowns worse.
No, that's for sure. And Purdue has a great tradition in football. And, you know, they used to call them the spoiler makers. I don't think you ever take a team like this lightly, and hopefully we won't.
One of the things, too, that may be a factor and may not, you haven't seen them in a couple of years,
I haven't played them in a couple of years. Really don't know much about their personnel. And I know they're throwing the football an awful lot. And I know any Freddie Akers team has been very strong defensively.
That's the one thing that worries you most about any team is how well their defense plays. Now, they've given up some points in the past, but against Michigan State on Saturday, scored 3 touchdowns in the last 6 minutes to make a game out of it, so they're improving. Well,
that's scary because you and I know, Jim, that Michigan State has an extremely strong defense, and for them to score 21 points in 6 minutes, that's kind of scary. So we'll have to play well, and we'll have to, you know, we'll have to improve from last week. That's our goal.
Where's right now for you, the biggest area of improvement you'd like to see happen against Purdue?
The punt.
The kicking game.
The kicking game. The kicking game is vitally important. I'm not sure we won the kicking game Saturday. And if you don't win the kicking game, chances are you're going to lose some ball games.
I know you changed up from Stapleton to Ascona. Is that something that's going to be worked out in practice?
I think that's a safe statement, Jim, that we'll work that out in practice. At least we will attempt to work that out in practice.
Well, we'll find out if they solve it. Make sure you join us right here next week when we come back your way with Michigan Replay and we look at the Michigan versus Purdue game. Michigan, well, it took a while, but...
And never give him a run of over 10 yards. We'll win the game.
In the meantime, when you get the ball, your offense goes to work, and you do it on the ground.
Well, I think we're blocking better, and we're a much better team than we have been. This is a little counter play in here. Tony Bowles got hurt, and Alan Jefferson came in and gave us some momentum, ran very hard here on the counter play, and then Mike goes back to pass and hits Chris Callaway over here for a first down.
And this was your 3rd possession. They'd done pretty well, and then you seemed to solve their defensive schemes.
Well, we did a better job because
for real,
they're still a good football team. They, you know, they have a good offensive scheme. They got a good quarterback. They got a great tailback. The surprising thing about the whole game is that we were able to make the plays against their defense like we did. I thought it would be much stickier than what it was.
But the other surprising thing, too, was the fact that their Heisman hopeful, Anthony Thompson, gained less than 100, and you said all week long, I don't think we can hold that kid under 100.
No, I told our defense that if we could hold him to 4 yards or less per carry, because we didn't know how many times they'd give him the ball.
Over the Hoosiers. We'll talk to a young man who's come back from a rough start to be a good example for all young athletes, and we'll scout the Boilermakers of Purdue. All that and more coming up next.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Michigan Replay. The Wolverines, a homecoming victor over Indiana, 38-10. And do you realize, Coach, in 21 years, you've never lost a homecoming contest?
That's pretty good, except who do we play all the time?
Yeah, well, now let's face
that might have more to do with winning than anything else.
But let's face it, Indiana coming into this game was considered to be...
Here, Jefferson breaks out on a long gainer, shows his speed here. I think he's slowly but surely regaining his speed from that leg injury. But our defense, I think, started to solve his cutbacks, and he didn't overrun plays and did a better job. Here, Tony Bowles runs through a tackle at the 3-yard line, goes in to score our first touchdown, and we take a 7-0 lead.
That puts you ahead, and then they come back, and they start to move the ball a little bit through the air.
Yes, they did. They hit the outcut to the field here, close to a first down. I thought, you know, early they did a good job. Now, here we went back, put a little heat on him, and unfortunately, one of our lads was supposed to keep leverage, not let him get outside, but failed to do so, and he gained yardage.
But this is what Anthony Thompson saw
Notice
all
the
day.
cutbacks, and we started to do a better job of closing those gaps on the backside. And I think that's what did it. Here we get a sack out of Michael Evans, and we did a pretty good job of keeping heat on him. I think we covered the receivers pretty well, and that's the reason we got a couple of those sacks.
Then their kicker, Bunnell, hits one from 55, and it could have been 65.
Whatever. I mean, that ball I thought was going out of the stadium, and they teed it up at midfield.
And then the big play happened.